So the Islanders clinch on Wednesday night against the Montreal Canadiens. The same Montreal Canadiens that have been a gnat to the Islanders all season long. The Islanders went in the final game and pulled off a win that they needed. Desperately, desperately needed. The secrets of this playoff run could be only one thing, and that's Ilya Sorokin. If Sorokin stands on his head throughout the playoffs and he plays dominantly like he's done early in his career in the playoffs. Go look at Ilya Sorokin's record, his goals against and save percentage in the playoffs. It is elite numbers. If Sorokin could go into this playoffs matched up against the Carolina Hurricanes, I think they match up very well. Barzal is going to be a big part of this team moving forward. And we haven't seen him play with Bo Horvat since February, which is definitely a problem. The Islanders were going to make that big move at the trade deadline, and that's what Lou wanted to do. They wanted to give a guy like Barzal another weapon on that line, which they haven't delivered to him ever since they drafted him. Yes, Gart Snow drafted him. They traded Beauvillier. He looks like he's become a star in Vancouver. You have Roddy, who could become a star in the future, and a first-round draft pick. The Islanders needed to make the playoffs because if that pick became a lottery pick, it would have made the Islanders look really, really bad. Bo Horvat has been good, but not great for the Islanders. He started off hot when he came to this team and then has slowed down. Now, that doesn't mean that Bo Horvat isn't a good player. It doesn't mean moving forward Bo Horvat won't be a big, important player to this team. What it means is losing a guy like Mathew Barzal on a line that people thought was going to be their elite line, their top line with Bo Horvat and Anders Lee, Paul Murray. We haven't seen that for the last 2 months. So if you're an Islander fan, you definitely want to hope that Mathew Barzal will be back in the first game of this playoff run. That's one. 2, Ilya Sorokin becomes very, very hot in the playoffs. That will be a very important theme to this team, goaltending. And this defense actually wakes up because they haven't. Everybody keeps talking about this fourth line. Clutterbuck's back. Everybody thought he was out for the season. Cizikas and Martin. Who cares? This defense in Dobson, Pelech, Pulak, Aho, Mayfield. All of these guys need to show up in the playoffs and play their games. If they do that, they can compete with anybody.
Yeah, the defensive depth especially was something that the Islanders definitely strived in other playoff runs that we've seen. And now it's a kind of a different look. Obviously, Pelech and Pulak are still the same, but now you're trying to trust more in guys like Romanov to give him more minutes on the ice. Guys like Dobson, who times defensively this year has been iffy and not really developed in that. Offensively, he's been fantastic this year, but his defense has been iffy at certain points. Scott Mayfield, like you said, good third pair defenseman. If he could step his game up too against these deeper teams, that'll make a big difference for the Islanders too. And offensive depth. And the Islanders are not one of the faster teams in the league, so they're going to have to try to possess the puck in other ways. Their forecheck has always been good in the playoffs with Trotz. Will it be the same with Lambert carried over? We will have to see. But this offensive depth, especially if Barzal isn't back right away too, is going to have to carry that load the same way. And especially on the power play too. The Islanders are still at issues with the power play as well. That makes a big difference come playoff time. You can't botch these opportunities when penalties do not get called as much in the playoffs.
Brock Nelson has been the savior for the New York Islanders.
Yes.
Really, in the whole second half, and what he has done, fighting injury. He had an upper body injury. He wasn't out more than a week. Really, he wasn't out more than a game. And that shows you the toughness of Brock Nelson. I don't know what's going on with Mathew Barzal, but it is alarming that this player has been out for a significant amount of time, and he has been a huge loss for the New York Islanders, especially for scoring. They have not scored enough since his injury. He was on a roll when Bo Horvat was brought to this team. As a matter of fact, he scored 3 goals, a couple assists, 8 points in 9 games, and then he got hurt. Then he's been out ever since. Bo Horvat, that has been healthy since he was traded to the New York Islanders, has been not the same player he was when he was in Vancouver because the Islanders were depending on him on a line that didn't have Mathew Barzal. So if you're an Islander fan, you want to hope that this team is at full strength going into the playoffs because then we'll see what this team really is. We haven't seen this team in the playoffs for almost 2 years now. And the last time they were in the playoffs, they went to the Eastern Conference Championship.
And where will that third or fourth type scorer come from that is going to be hot on a consistent basis? They need that third guy to break out because Horvat in the bubble year with Vancouver was very good in the playoffs. I believe he had 10 goals. Vancouver took a very good Vegas team to 7 games, a Vancouver team that was very young at the time. Anthony Beauvillier was always that other guy for them, but now he's traded. So Barzal, even if he comes back and does his usual stuff, the Islanders are still going to need that third guy because they're going up against teams that are going to be very deep in the Metropolitan Division. Those teams all have a lot of offensive depth that's going to be hard, and the Hurricanes both have a lot of defensive depth too.